All right. Welcome again. This is 12 Gauge. I am your host. Thank you for being here. This is 12 Gauge Investigative. Hello, Jeff H. So I saved you from somebody's live stream. Was it that good? Obviously, it was that great, man. It was that great. Don't you dip out, man. You're locked in now. You gotta watch this whole thing. How you been, buddy? Hope you've been doing all right. And once the rest of you get in here, I know it takes a little while for people to walk on in here. I want to do the remainder of the Delphi as I said I would earlier today. I just finished eating some birthday cake and some ice cream. Man, sucks trying to control your sugar. I guess for every bite I eat of sugar, I got to drink like six bottles of water, something like that. I don't know. But anyways, as you guys kind of filter on in, just come on in, have a seat. Let's continue this going on, and let's go ahead and begin.
Already, and like some of the kids boys I've never seen show any emotion. They were distraught, and it was really sad, really bad.
How were the adults? Did they seem as heartbroken as you?
Yes. One of my favorite teachers came in a little bit after. After students got called out of her class and stuff, she actually asked if someone could watch her class so she could be in the library with us, because she was our 8th grade teacher at that, and Libby's. But she was the math bowl coach too. So she was also close to her in that way. And she just came in and we just all sat and hugged her. And I mean, it was terrible the next few days, really bad. We had dogs come in, and that was nice. And
you mean like comfort animals, right?
Yes. We had the support at the school. We really did.
No one had specifically told me. I just kind of figured it out based on clues around the hallway when kids were crying.
Cynthia Rossi is also a friend of Abby and Libby. We met her in the last chapter. And when you talk to her today, it's clear she had to grow up quickly. And this is where it starts.
They had started taking kids and putting them into the library, and they had counselors there. And I knew when I saw like all the different visitor passes and like people crying and school officials walking around all over the place, I knew that it probably hadn't ended well.
And did you ask anybody what was happening or what happened next for you?
I didn't ask anybody because I just kind of had this feeling. And then I went into the library with my friends, and we just talked with some of our teachers about them.
And were there pastors there at that point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's going through your mind, finding out that your friends are missing, now they've been found, and it's not good?
I think it was just, I am the type of person where I want to be there for other people. So I was just mostly like consoling my friends and making sure that they were okay. And I kind of regret that, because it's like the analogy that if you have a cup full of water and you just keep pouring to other people, you don't have any left for yourself. So I was so worried about other people, and I wish I would have taken that time to,
That's so insightful for a young person to be able to recite that. I've used that analogy many a time, but to hear a young person recite that, it's like having a glass of water and you keep pouring it in. You keep pouring for others. You don't leave any for yourself. And that is so insightful, man. That is awesome to hear a young person recite that.
Sit down and ask myself, are you okay? Are you ready to deal with this? Rather than just talking to people like that whole night. I stayed up and talked to friends and their family members and my family members, where I wish that I would just let myself deal with it and just take some time away from my phone, away from social media, away from everyone, and just decompress and let myself deal with it.
And I said, listen, you're babies and you don't know how to deal with this because I don't know how to deal with this.
That's Christine Lang. She's one of Abby and Libby's teachers, and she's dealt with a lot of things in her classroom, but never this.
I said, absolutely, no one. You don't have a class in college that talks about what you do when a student passes away from any reason. And you and I both know it's just out of order. We shouldn't bury our babies or our grandbabies. And so everyone was just trying to love each other.
The text that you got that they had been found, did you get the notification that they had passed from something so horrific, or was it they've been found and they passed away?
It was just, she was not out there. I think a family member of hers was helping, and no. And I will say, I don't think we really knew, nor do we know all the details, and I don't want to, and that's not my business. But then I think by the time people were gathering in the library, that it had come to be known that there was some wrongdoing. I don't know that the kids or even I was aware that day of how horrible it was.
That's me playing
It
guitar right
is
there.
hearing these kids and these teachers talk about learning of Abby and Libby's death. I am reminded that there is a very big difference between, them learning that they're dead and learning that it was murder and what goes with that.
And how shocking that must be that two of your friends disappear and now they're dead. And even though we haven't heard the police officially say that this is Abby and Libby that have been found, everybody knows that. Everybody's operating at this point as if it is Abby and Libby.
Why don't you think they announced them officially early on?
I'm not entirely sure. I think, though, that they realize they're dealing with something different here and they're going by the book. The bodies need to be taken to Terre Haute for the autopsy. And that's usually when the official ID process comes about.
Well, and while that ID still needs to be made, the investigation is kind of kicking off here with multiple jurisdictions and agencies, because Carroll County and the sheriff's office there will probably be the first to tell you we don't necessarily have the resources or the experience to handle
Or the budget.
To handle something like that.
Exactly. And Indiana State Police have access to so many more resources around the state and even outside of the state. They have the governor's office on board. And so we'll see that sort of change of hands with this investigation. And I think that having all of those agencies there that early is also symbolic of we're dealing with something different here. This is not a routine case that's being investigated.
Something entirely different that the town is also learning and trying to determine how long.
And I think that's pretty traumatic in itself. And I spoke a little bit about this earlier. It's when you're a small community, you're not used to dealing with a bunch of murders, a bunch of tragedy. And when it happens to your community, I'm sure everybody involved just is rushing around trying to figure it all out. Like, we don't want to make a mistake, but we also don't want to take forever to get the clues because, as they said earlier, the first 48 hours is the most crucial time
before they take their first step forward.
Hey everyone, it's Dan. While we were in Delphi, we spoke to a lot of people and had many amazing conversations. So many, in fact, that we weren't able to fit them all in the show. One thing that we feel very strongly about, though, is including a picture of who Libby German and Abby Williams were. They're the victims of this horrible crime, yes, but we don't think that's what should define them. What should are the details of what made them incredible people. In the last chapter, we learned a little bit about Abby from her mom, Anna Williams. This chapter, we'll meet Libby. Here's her mom, Carrie Timmons.
She was just the sunshine in your day, Always wanted everybody to laugh, never wanted anyone to feel bad about themselves. So she would always she's always complimenting someone. But at the same time, we could sit back and tease and joke and make fun. People watch, and she was just your typical all-around good kid. Fun to be around. Always on the go, always wanted to help someone or do something. What can we do to make you happy today? Kind of person, always joking. And strangely, even though she was my 14-year-old daughter, she would be who I would go to for advice a lot of times. Wise beyond her years. I was going through a divorce at the time, leading up to February 2017. And she would call me just to check up on me and make sure I would, how are you doing today, Mom? And if I would talk to her about what was going on, she always just had the wisest things to say. And I'm like, how do you even, you've never even been in a relationship. How do you know so much? And she would say, sometimes when I'm in my room, I just think about what my life will be like when I'm older. What if my husband came home one day and he was mad at me, how I would fix the situation. And I'm glad she was able to do that, because obviously she's not going to get that chance to grow up and be in those relationships. But it was almost like she already knew. She knew what life was supposed to be like, and she was happy.
We'll have some more special moments in the next chapter. For now, though, let's get back to the show.
Part 3, allowed to be angry.
I don't know if anybody knew what to do, and if there is anything that you could do, that would be perfect. You have an instance that hasn't happened in the city of Delphi. We've had murders, but nothing like this. And then to have one that attracts not only local coverage, which would be expected, but to have national and international coverage is something that we weren't prepared for, and I don't know if anybody's prepared for.
Barb, there's a period after these crimes that, after the initial shock, which can last a long time, obviously, but after the initial shock of learning what happened and accepting what's happening, the families have to process this and have to begin to think about moving ahead logistically, things like that, planning funerals, but there is a processing period that goes on.
And we're about to hear some of the sort of stumbles with that in the early hours of that process for these families. And there's a lot of activity still going on here. We have all of the law enforcement in place to begin this investigation. And we also have media from all over the state of Indiana and outside of the state now taking an interest in this and starting to call Kim Riley and get to the area themselves.
Yeah, it doesn't take long for media to learn what happened and latch onto the story. I mean, it grows like wildfire.
Yes, absolutely. And also at the school, the kids now know what happened, that Abby and Libby have been found, but they don't know anything beyond that. And that's going to be a difficult conversation for a lot of them.
And you know what else is interesting is that obviously this investigation is ratcheting up. I mean, it's going to ratchet up kind of almost infinitely, it seems like, but it's going to ratchet up. And then while that's going on, and while the kids in the school have to, we talked about processing, while these kids have to process what's happened, there's also a whole other element of the fear that, wait a second, the guy that did this is walking around.
Could still be here.
May very well still be in Delphi. And
So think about this in other cases as well, where they don't automatically catch the killer. So can you imagine being around the same demographic as the person that was murdered? Aren't you going to be a little frightened that, you know what, they got these two? What to stop them from coming and hurting us? You know what I mean? So many times, and I keep referencing that other case that I talk about, because it's not similar, but the same dynamics are pretty much going on, except they caught the person quicker in that other case than they did in this one. But it's interesting to see all the dynamic going on and playing out. I'm so sad that, this case isn't more popular for people than three people in the chat. That makes me kind of sad, but oh well. Oh, one more came in. It's like people come in, they stay for a minute, they leave. They stay for a minute, they leave. It's just kind of saddening that, people can't take interest in other things other than one particular case or to have drama going on. But I'm going to stay true to my channel. So it is what it is. If you watch this on replay, like a while ago, I noticed that the one that I did earlier, one of them got 69 views, 10 likes. The other one got 56 views and 8 likes. So it's like people don't even want to watch anything different because it's not dramatic enough for them. It's boring. But you know what? I'm going to stay true to myself, even if I get no views. Here we go.
So, for people like Erica Gibson and Cynthia Rossi, their friends have been killed, but they are also dealing with the fact that the town that they know as kind of this small little innocent town outside of Indianapolis,
Where nothing really big happens.
well, that's not the case anymore.
Not anymore.
So you have these young kids who aren't really aware of how this happened, and you have parents who have to figure out a way to kind of have this moment with their kids to explain what happened. And additionally, you've got teachers at the schools who are trying to figure out, how do we address this in class? And Christine Lang had to figure that out too.
And, I think teachers, all of us, plans change in a minute. A kid gets sick, a kid makes a mistake, a kid throws up in your room, a kid has a seizure, and, all those things you just adjust to. And we had a student at the high school. I think he was sick at that time, and he has since passed away from cancer. And, you at least had some time, some thoughts that maybe this would happen. So, no, you're absolutely right. You get this news, and you as adults and moms and dads and brothers in the building, you just go into action for the kids that are in your care. I mean, you tried very hard not to break in front of them and, at home, but I'm not going to pretend for the next few days, few months, really till May when we talked about him, we had tears in our room, and I think that's okay. But I don't, I mean, you knew the day before that they were missing, and you think of all the scenarios, and I think, you thought maybe they fell, maybe they got lost. I don't think you think in Delphi that someone took your babies and this is what happened. So I don't think anyone had any time to prepare. I think it was just, this is what we do for a living. And so now you just love them different today.
Amy Brown is Erica's mom. And like a lot of moms in town, she's on the way to pick up her daughter, figuring out how to tell her this wasn't an accident. It was on purpose.
You're talking about telling her in the car, and you would talk to her dad, and he had kind of given you some news. So you essentially had like 45 minutes to figure out how to, pull the rug out from under your daughter's life. And I'm curious, your drive to pick her up. I can't imagine what you were thinking. Like, how do I tell? Like, can you take us through, like, from your perspective, how do I tell her this? What are the words I use?
That's essentially exactly what I did, as I'm like literally bawling, driving there, like, and I can remember talking to myself, like saying out loud, what are you going to do? How are you going to tell her this? And for a while I thought, I'm just not going to tell her. Like, we'll pretend we saw it on TV, or something. But then I was like, I rationalized in my head, no, she deserves to know what happened. And so it was just like a whole internal conflict on how to tell her. And I finally just thought, I'm just going to tell her. Like, I'm not going to use fancy words. I'm not going to say anything.
I mean, that has to be a hard conversation to have with anybody, much less your child. to have to tell them that their classmates were brutally murdered.
I'm just going to tell her somebody did this.
And you had to know that the words coming out of your mouth were going to change her life forever.
Absolutely. I just kept thinking her life will never be the same. This one instance is going to dictate the rest of her life. And so depending on, how she would react to it. And knowing her as well as I did, I knew that it would.
My husband and I went back to our house, and I had forgotten that everybody's there.
Cynthia's mom, Denise, is trying to figure out the same thing as she heads home. Her backyard has become a staging area for law enforcement because she lives so close to the crime scene.
So there's search teams all around, all in our house. And then all these people are asking us questions, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. I remember that. And then we got in the house, and I couldn't breathe. I just couldn't breathe. And I was thinking about experiences I had had with loss and what to say. And I kept thinking as a mom, they're allowed to be sad. They're allowed to be angry. They're allowed to be mad. Don't stifle anything they're feeling. I remember just all these weird things going through my head that you'd never think.
I think right after I had gotten out of school, they had announced that they were suspecting foul play. And I had no clue what that meant because, I was only 12, 13 years old. And then I asked my mom what that meant, and she said it means that it was probably a homicide and somebody else did this to them. It wasn't an accident, it was planned, and it was an attack.
And what did you think about that?
I just couldn't stop thinking about why someone would target two of the most innocent people I'd ever met, why it had to happen to me, why Delphi, it's just this small town in the middle of nowhere, and you blink and you're already past it. How could something so horrific and terrifying found its way here?
Becky Patty and her husband Mike are heading home to wait for the rest of their family without Libby.
At that point in time, I wasn't thinking how it happened, just that she was gone. I guess your mind doesn't go past that for a while. You don't even think to ask questions for just a little bit. You just know that she's not here. But I think it was shortly after that, I think it was that day even, that they did come out and say that they suspected foul play. So that's when it starts hitting. Oh my gosh, they were killed. They were killed. You have to let that one sink in a little bit. Because it's one thing if they fall, but it's another thing that, this isn't right.
Like I said, it's a little blurry to me because we're still.
I don't know if you've ever had classmates that passed away, but there for a couple years we were having classmates pass away pretty frequent. And, at that point, we didn't have grievance counselors or any of that. We just didn't understand it. How you could be here one day and gone the next. But, these kids were, a couple of them were hit by vehicles that were riding their go-karts. One was changing his tire along the street, got hit by a car. So it's not like the same thing. But it's still, you either knew them or you didn't. And it's still kind of, the whole school is silent.
Still in a state of disbelief, that this is, this can't be happening. This is, come on, guys, this is not happening. Not here, not now, not to us. So yeah, obviously the law enforcement, the police, they did what they were supposed to do. You know what I mean? They're trying to gather and collect as much information so they can get on top of this as quick as they can. Yeah, I do remember, going in and talking to the police we're just kind of putting one foot in front of the other, and somebody hollers or calls, and then we go here, we go there. Becky put it very well. It was almost like a out of body kind of experience. You're watching everything go on. You're like, man, I'm not even a part of this. It's happening, and what's going on, and please somebody explain this. But it was very difficult. I don't know how to explain it. There's no words that I can think of anyway to explain. It's a bad time. Bad time.
Libby's cousin Sadie, we heard from her earlier in this chapter, remembers one particular moment.
We were all just sitting around the table. It was quiet. And then you could tell that nobody wanted to say anything. Like there was just like the heavy aroma in the house. And we were sitting there, and my Aunt Becky had yelled upstairs for Libby to call her mom and tell her what happened. And then she hollered out like three or four times, and all of our eyes just got like really big. Like, what do we say? Like, what do we do? And then she finally realized, and she buried her face in her hands and ran to the bedroom. And then we were all like, well, I think we should leave them alone now. So.
While the families are trying to process what's happening, Pastor Todd suddenly has a bigger congregation. He's ministering not just to a church, but an entire town.
You had already been working here 16, 17 years when this happened. What does that sort of atmosphere of the town feel like as you're going about Tuesday, making plans for a press conference and a prayer vigil after this horrific thing has happened in your city? What does the town feel like?
Frankly, it was hard to get a feel for the town. I was so zoned in on what needed to be done at that moment. So really, I'm not getting a sense for the town's feeling until they come to the prayer vigil. I didn't know if we'd have 50 people here. Didn't know if we'd have 100 people here. I just didn't know what it was. What gave me a clue of what's going to happen was when my secretary began to report the Facebook responses and the shares. She would say it's been shared 100 times, 250 times, 500 times, 1,000 times, 1,500 times. And she quit when it had done been sharing 2,500 times. And I said,
That's
please
big
stop.
for a town of 3,000 people.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So at that point in time, okay, you begin to get a sense of what it's going to be like. And the place was filled and into the rotunda. And the nice thing was this. I made 2 phone calls, one to a staff person, one to a volunteer, and said, we need hospitality. And immediately I had 40 people who are ready to serve their community. That's part of who Delphi is. When you ask one question and people respond like that, you know you're not in it alone. And that's when it's good.
That makes you emotional.
It certainly does. Absolutely. Because you don't do this job alone. The temptation is to do it alone, but you cannot do it alone. And so the more you have people around you, the better off you are. And I watched this church serve, and many churches serve amazingly through this entire time. You look at things like the motorcycle ride. You look at things like the walk to reclaim the trails. You look at the Abby Libby celebration of life. That's coming from the entire community. That's the fabric of this community. That's so important.
Mayor Shane Evans, for the first time, realizes February 14th and what it means will always be different.
That was actually the first Valentine's Day I'd spent with the woman who's now my wife. And so she came into the office. We had plans to go on a date or something that night. And she came into the office, and I remember hugging her and bawling. It was the first time that day I really got to express my emotions. You know, you're out in the public, you're dealing. And it's not trying to stay strong for everybody, but there's a lot to be done that day. And really, that was the first time I broke down. And that's another vivid memory that I have. But I think it shows me how much she means to me. to be able to break down in front of somebody like that and to cry and to have them be your support. And she was dealing with the same emotions that I was. This is all of our communities. This community belongs to all of us. And so we were all feeling the same emotion. But for her to, I guess, be the stronger one for me at that moment means a lot.
While Delphi is gathering at the Methodist Church, Chief Daryl Sterrett is back at the firehouse, and he's worried about his men.
That night, early afternoon, whatever, I told the guys, I said, just go home, be with your families, decompress a little bit, come back tonight, we'll have beer and pizza, don't take this home. And we had a few guys come back, and it isn't about talking about what you have seen or where you've been. It's just sometimes it's too early to go to those quiet moments. I think there's a point where it's too early to bring in the professionals to talk about it. I'm not saying you can heal it yourself, but the first thing, I feel I would lose so much respect if my guys had come in and there was some doctor standing there that they didn't know. We needed to be together. And that's what we did.
Like a family.
Yes. And the guys, I'm good. We're fine. Thanks for the beer, pizza. We talked and chatted it out. Probably didn't talk about the scene one time. Maybe a question of this or a question of that. And I felt that was good. If they wanted to talk about it, that's why we were there. If you don't want to talk about it, I know better than to try to make you. I knew there would be a time when we would have the professional. That day, that evening was not it. So we did that, went home, and late evening, 10:30, 11 o'clock, I get a phone call from, I think, Chief Mullins, wanting to know if we can send some equipment out to the scene to assist with the state police and FBI or whoever. There's so many people here at that point, right, to assist with the scene investigation. After standing on concrete for 2 days straight, I couldn't even get off of the couch. My back was done. I made phone calls to a couple. You can't just send anybody. You had to send the right people because you didn't want to send them into the scene. And I thought I expressed that with Chief Mullins. And I sent three or four of my guys to take care of it. I felt horrible. I couldn't do it myself, but I physically could not walk. And so they went that evening and assisted with the crime scene. I think they were there till mid-morning. I don't know.
As the day ends, the man.
And you know what the sad part about all this is? This is the part, all this stuff that we're hearing right here, this is the part the killer gets off on. All this chaos, all this turmoil, all these people hurting, all this attention. That's what the killer gets off on. That's what they get off on. So if you've never known that, so the emotion that you're feeling right now, if you're feeling sad or you're feeling like, can't believe these two little girls got done like this, all these emotions that we're hearing from these people that are telling us the story, the killer is relishing in their actions. And so many people want to defend people that commit crimes, not just in one case that we barely know about, but in all of them. There's always a group of people that want to defend not the victims, but the perpetrator. So do understand that as you're hearing all this from the families, the professionals, all this stuff, there's somebody listening and watching and even probably being around searching for these girls. You know? Getting off on it. It's so sad. You're right.
Tasked with finding a killer is getting in his car.
You're out there for several hours. What did you do next?
Took the long way home. My wife is just awesome. She's incredibly supportive and understanding. And I knew this one was going to be different. And I called her and said, a couple, 3 cups of coffee home, probably. Just going to go take the long way. So I did. I just drove by myself for a while.
Did you listen to music?
Nope. Total silence. I've often thought about that silence, actually, because it's not like that. At the time, I wondered if I need to still do what I'd done, what I do. Yeah.
Do you still ask yourself that?
Nope. Not up to me anymore. No.
The town of Delphi will forever be measured in 2 parts, before and after February 14th, 2017. What they'll soon see is cop cars on every corner, media trucks on Main Street, and fear and suspicion in the eyes of friends and neighbors. Friends and neighbors who know there may be.
And that's an interesting point too, Badass American. You know, how do people just based on that, I'm amazed how many women think Alan is innocent. Where's people's logic when they believe or disbelieve that people are capable of killing, much less killing children? There's always an excuse. There's no way that they could have killed this person. There's no way that they could have killed these 4 people. There's no way that he could have shot this person. There's no way. What happens? It happens. So to defend the person that you believe didn't do it, it's just as bad as you doing the crime yourself with them.
Be a killer in town. And tomorrow, they'll see him.
Down the Hill, The Delphi Murders, is written and produced by Andrew Iden, Barbara McDonald, and me, Dan Semitovich, with original music and scoring by Shuvo Sir, and production support from associate producers Michael Dudley and Kayleen Chassie. If you want to see the people, places, and things we're talking about, visit our website, downthehillpodcast.com. Brian Bell is HLN's Senior Director of Programming, and Tyler Moody is the Vice President of the Warner Media Podcast Network. Sherry Seldes is our Senior Production Manager. A lot of folks at HLN and CNN worked hard to help make this show go, and we want to give a big thank you to them. If you want to see the people and places we're talking about in the story, learn more about the investigation, including how to submit tips, or learn more about the town of Delphi, visit our website, downthehillpodcast.com.
You said the last time we spoke to you that for you, the woods will never be the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I still feel that way, even when I'm at home in my own woods. Yeah. I think a lot of people feel that way. There's been a lot of violation here, from the freedom and sanctity of a rural place to the perception of safety and security. If you're willing to bet, most parents in this area wouldn't drop their kids off here anymore. What a shame. What a shame.
It's a beautiful area right now.
Beautiful. This whole community is just really just a spectacular place. Every time I come through this, and this is a very trail, This is the very trail that it's hard to get past that. It's hard to get beyond that. I wish these trees could talk. If these trees could talk, or the stone, or whatever it might be, because they know exactly who did this.
Everything we know about what happened to Abby Williams and Libby German in those woods is a series of disconnected moments. And between each moment, a blank space. Over the past 3 years, State Police Superintendent Doug Carter, like all of us, has been trying to fill in those spaces. That's where the answers are. And now we're about to see some of those moments for the first time.
Police are also examining this Snapchat photo. It was taken just before both girls disappeared.
I made the announcement that the girls have been found and it was not to a good end.
We are investigating this as a crime scene. We suspect foul play.
Law enforcement is saying that one of the girls actually took video on her iPhone. They say it was right before she was murdered.
That was so brave of whichever girl did that. I mean, that was so brave. It's almost like she had a premonition, you know? She took video and voice. So it's like, you know, that is being insightful. And even though they both perished, you know, at least they gave their families a direction. They gave the police and everybody else a direction to look into.
It's amazing that we have a video, we have a still photograph, we have sound, and we don't know who this person is.
It could be half of the white males in Carroll County.
To the killer who may be in this room. We likely have interviewed you. We know that this is about power to you, and you want to know what we know. And one day, you will.
This is Down the Hill, the Delphi murders.
We're back here at the CNN Center in Atlanta in our production room. I'm Barbara McDonald.
And I'm Drew Iden.
We want to thank you for coming along on this journey with us. And we're not trying to solve this case. What we want to do is make sense of it. And part of that is understanding, what do we know right now? What we know is that two girls, Abigail Williams and Liberty German, 13 and 14 years old, had been murdered. We know that they were on a bridge moments before disappearing, and that their bodies were found some distance away along a creek. And it's been described as a particularly gruesome crime scene. And that triggered a massive response from law enforcement from the get-go, including the FBI.
And coupled with that is the things that we don't know, which is there's a pretty hefty amount of that at this point. The first thing being, how were these two girls killed? The scene is gruesome. What was it that triggered such a massive law enforcement response? I mean, we're talking about multiple jurisdictions, multiple agencies, state, federal, local, everything. And then finally, we don't know the level of fear this community should have. Was this a serial killer that will strike again? Was this a one-off isolated incident, isolated crime? We don't know the level of concern that locals should have. All of that kind of funnels into the three big questions we have, which are, who did this? What the hell happened out there? And how hasn't this been solved?
And as we get back into our story, law enforcement is beginning to process the first bits of evidence. And they are still at the crime scene. They are also beginning to fan out all over the area to talk to people and to begin figuring out what happened here.
Like you said, this is the first time law enforcement is able to really wrap their hands around tangible evidence, stuff, things that will give them some insight on what in the world happened. Part 1, 2:07 p.m.
I've noticed more and more people who are walking the trails. You know, they're not walking alone. They're looking over their shoulders. They're you know, that innocence was taken from us.
Does anybody know if they closed that bridge or not? I don't have recent information, so I don't know if they closed it or not. If you have any information on that in the chat, please type that in.
You should know the day after is an important benchmark in this case. It's where for the first time we see actual evidence.
There are 2 Snapchat photos circulating. One of them shows Abby on the bridge shortly before she went missing.
And before we get to the photos, there are a couple of things about the Monon High Bridge you need to know. It's more than a century old, and it stretches more than 800 feet. And Deer Creek is 70 feet below. It hasn't been used by trains since the 1980s, so the railroad ties are in pretty rough shape. There are large gaps in between. It's a tough walk, and I can tell you from experience, it is not for those with a fear of heights. In the Snapchat picture of Abby from February 13th, she's looking down, as anyone who walks this bridge does and should, and her hands appear to be in her pockets.
She's wearing blue jeans, a red t-shirt with a gray hoodie and sneakers. Her hair is in a messy bun. She's already crossed the portion of the bridge going over the creek, and the photo appears to have been taken from one of the small platforms that extend from the side of the bridge.
Here's Erica Gibson again.
Abby was happy. Like, you can't really see it. Like, she's trying to get like across the bridge. You know, you're a little terrified.
She's looking down at her
she's
feet.
like, you can tell that they wouldn't have gone there and stuff unless they wanted to. I don't know if Abby's ever been on the bridge before, but it could have been Abby's first time. She gets a little scared sometimes. So when she probably wouldn't have walked across the bridge. So at that point, she was probably scared. But I mean, she was probably excited after she got off for herself. I'm guessing.
How many of y'all in the chat would have walked across that bridge? I don't know at my age right now. I'm not old by any means, but no, I don't think so. How many of y'all would have walked across that bridge?
If she's never been on it. And they were having fun. Libby was taking photos, like I said, and Abby was being a little model.
The second Snapchat photo is a black and white picture of just the bridge disappearing into the woods. There's no one in front of her, and we don't know what's happening behind her. Which of these 2 photos was taken first? We don't know that either. But we do know the timing here is significant.
Now, explain for me. I don't use Snapchat. So when Libby took these 2 pictures, she uploaded them, which meant that all of her friends or whatever her privacy setting was, all those people could see it.
Yes, everyone on her privacy settings, depending.
But then once they see it, it's supposed to disappear. Is that right?
After 24 hours.
Okay. Unless you screenshot it.
Unless you screenshot it, yes.
And then you can keep it on your device. Okay. And does it automatically have the timestamp when Libby posted that? Does it automatically, does Snapchat put that, the date and time?
I'm trying to think. It doesn't. But if I'm thinking right now, I screenshotted it when it said 3 hours. And then I looked at the time I screenshotted it was like, I don't want to get this wrong, but I forget what time, but it was like,
you were able to do the math.
Yeah,
and
it
figure
was
out.
around that.
Yeah, when I was younger, I probably would have done it on my knees, but I don't like heights like that, especially, there's only one way off of it, and that's down. Nah, I couldn't have done it.
And so when I gave my phone, they're like, okay, so you took the photo at this time and it said this many hours ago. So my timestamp said like 2:10 when I think it was like 2:07. So like they're just trying to see where everybody took it to try to get approximate time that it was posted.
We talk about imagery in this case and its importance to the investigation. These 2 Snapchat photos are the first clues that help establish a timeline. And investigators need to get their hands on them.
The FBI came to our school, super nice people. Like, I mean, they came a few times. The office people knew them, really nice people. I've never met anybody in the FBI, and from my experience with them, they're good people. He called us in. He was like, listen, I got your name from either a last student that you may have the screenshot or that you may be able to help us. He's like, you don't have to say anything. You can walk out of here right now. But that wasn't what I'm here for. I'm not here to not give them what I know.
The FBI is continuing to interview students, and authorities are getting ready to talk to the media. It's the first press conference since yesterday's announcement that the bodies were found.
So we're back here at CNN Center, and everyone in Delphi wants to see and hear what law enforcement's going to say. As we mentioned before, messaging strategy is important, especially at this period in the case. The town is looking for answers. They're looking for information. And so this is the news conference, the first one where they're going to speak with some definitive information.
Okay, let me give you a little bit of insight. They said that the cell towers were so overwhelmed with all the media coverage and everything that was going on around that area because it was so rural. They had to bring in command centers in order to assist with the transmission of the information. So you can understand how small this town is. So now they're about to do the first press conference.
Let's take this thing bit by bit.
Here's Sergeant Kim Riley.
Basically, we have identified the bodies of the two females that were found out yesterday. The bodies have been positively identified as Abigail J. Williams, 13, of the Delphi area, and Liberty Rose Lynn German, 14, of the Delphi area. The two girls were reported missing on Monday, February 13th. The bodies were discovered about 12:15 on the 14th in the woods just east of town here by volunteers that helped in the search of the children after they were reported missing to the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Family has been notified. This is considered a double homicide investigation. We are asking for anyone to come forward who has information that were either on the Delphi Historic Trail yet there on Monday, especially if they were near the Monon High Bridge, that they might have been seeing somebody out there. They may have taken pictures where somebody might be in that photograph. If they were out there doing that kind of stuff, we need that information. We would love to have pictures of that, more to just clarify what we got going on out there.
So they know the bridge is significant at this point, and they're asking for anybody who is out there. And we've heard that there were people out there. It was a nice day. There were people out walking, and they're asking for all those people to come forward and tell them what they know.
Is there a threat to anybody else in the community?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is there a threat to anybody else in the community?
I'll let you answer that.
At this time, we do not believe so, sir.
Does that mean you have a person of interest in custody or a suspect?
We do not, sir.
Okay, this is a little bizarre. You have two girls found dead in the woods and a murderer who is on the loose. And understandably so, the first question from the media is, should people be afraid? And the sheriff's response is, at this time, no, sir. It's kind of a puzzling response.
Part of it, I think, is not wanting to alarm your community. I mean, you don't want to say, yes, everybody.
I mean, this is the second case where we've heard that, where they've asked, should we be alarmed? And the police is like, no, you shouldn't. But yet they haven't caught a killer. They haven't done any of that. So she's going to give some insight. But what's your insight on why police minimize the threat of a potential person still being out there to hurt the community?
You should panic.
Right.
But at the same time, by saying not at this time, it is sort of a, what do we do with that?
It's a little bit of damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you think about it.
It's a tough message to hear. I wonder if maybe that might be said differently today if they had a chance to do it over. But it's a fine line.
Can you tell us the cause, the manner of death that the autopsy uncovered?
No, we cannot do that at this time because of the investigation is still in its baby steps, so to speak, and we don't want to put that information out yet.
Can you describe for us the scope of the investigation, the resources, the people, what's going on with the investigation?
The Carroll County Sheriff's Department is the lead investigation. They've asked us to help. The Delphi Police Department is assisting. We have the FBI, what's called their ERT team, which is the evidence collection team that is here. And they're also providing other resources at this time. We have not put all of it together yet.
We've mentioned this a bit previously, but now we know from this news conference that the FBI is involved. And Sergeant Kim Riley says in that news conference, it's the evidence response team and other resources.
Right.
So
So if you're not up to date as well, in the first episode, they did say that Richard Allen confessed to his wife, and somebody even said in the chat, I think in the first one, it was somebody I don't remember right offhand, but badass just that he confessed 20 or 61 times. So that's 61 times a confession. And people were saying that he was coerced, he was, he was starved, he was bullied, he was all kinds of stuff to confess. I don't know what you believe, but I believe that if he confessed as his own will.
So obviously leads to the question is what are those?
One more thing, he admitted to being on that bridge, as you saw in the very first upload that I did on this case. He did admit to being on that bridge.
Other resources? What's the scope of the FBI's involvement? Because they don't get involved in every murder,
No, they
double
don't.
homicide case.
Right. This is also where I think it sort of begins that cops in this kind of get a reputation for being tight-lipped. They're not revealing a lot of information. They can't at this point. And that's something that's going to be sort of a theme throughout this investigation.
So we got a lot of new information out of that news conference, but as we're about to find out, they are not quite done for the day.
Part 2, a blurry picture and barren woods.
Well, and I think, as more of the story came out and, they kind of learned where the picture came from, I don't think you would find a classmate to say a bad word about Abby or Liberty. They were just great kids. Liberty just wanted the world to be kind, and Abby wanted everyone in the world to have things, like have a gift.
Yeah, that's another thing. They found the gun at his home, a Ruger. I think it was a 40 cal. And they found an unspent cartridge in between the girls.
Christmas.
We are following breaking news tonight out of Indiana. Someone has murdered 2 girls, one just 13 years old, the other 14. And in their search for information, they are trying to locate anyone who was in the wooded area at the time, including a male subject seen on these photographs. They were just released minutes ago by the Indiana State Police. They say they would like to ask this person what he might have seen.
That's Jean Casares. She's anchoring on HLN that night, talking through what happened that day with her guests when the photos are released. The 2 photos in question are blurry. They show a man walking on that same bridge around the same time as the girls. The Indiana State Police said the photos, quote, appear to depict a white male wearing blue jeans, a blue coat/jacket, and a hoodie. Those are the broad strokes of the person in these photos. Beyond that, you see a man with his hands in his pockets, walking on the bridge, looking down. He's framed by the kind of woods you see in winter, bare branches, dead trees. That was just one of the many things to talk about that night.
Christine Grillo, there was a press conference today, and this is a small community. They're not used to this. They have called in the FBI to help with the recovery. They are still processing the crime scene as we speak tonight. They haven't said if they've recovered the cell phones. How important is that?
I think the cell phones are going to be very important.
It's not too long before we learn that is an understatement.
As you see, the Snapchat photo that you put up there is a very telling photo. It gives probably the last person perhaps that saw them alive. The cell phones are going to give a lot of information. They're also not releasing certain information, and they're probably taking this investigation very slowly and very carefully. They're not releasing how the girls died, perhaps because they want to investigate further before.
See, that's another thing I don't understand about creators. I'm not talking about any that I know because I haven't really kept up with this case at all. I'm learning as some of you guys are. But one of the things that I don't really enjoy about other creators sometimes is they don't wait for stuff to be vetted. They just want to put it out there as quick as possible. And I've noticed that a lot of this stuff, they just tend to try to fill in the blanks as fast as possible to get a story out there. And then they get mad because mainstream media is just almost the same way. So they're complaining about something that they're doing. Ooh, that's disgusting.
Or saying something before tipping someone off. So the cell phones are going to be very, very important. The information and the communication that might have been picked up on those cell phones right before their death.
Christine Grillo is sitting in a New York TV studio, and she couldn't know this yet, but she was absolutely right about that. Immediately after this picture was released, everyone not involved in the investigation, including TV legal analysts, were asking the same questions and are starting to draw some early conclusions.
Let's look at this picture again that was just released of someone they say was walking along the trail, the Delphi Trail. This is the Monenhigh Bridge, possibly was a known place. First of all, I am shocked that there was a camera.
Yeah, I want to know where I want to know where that picture came from. And the thing about it that we're talking about, Eugene, is this is broad daylight. This is 2:00 in the afternoon, and it's a small town and a small community. And the benefits of living in the small town with a small community is someone there has to know who that person is.
Yeah.
Or if the person is not from there, we'll be able to see, did anyone see him? Did you see someone suspicious? Were there any cars? Are there cameras in the parking lot of the trail? You hope if it's a state or a government property that they have some semblance of surveillance that tracks who comes in and who goes out. And again, to piece the puzzle together.
And Christine, the bodies of these two young girls were not found actually on the trail. They were found off the trail, actually on private property, but close to a shoreline. So cars couldn't get anywhere near where those bodies were found.
So it could be that, you're
I'd advocate that trail cams should be all over wooded areas. There's no reason why they shouldn't. I mean, the way crazy things are these days, there's no reason cams should not be everywhere almost, The more, the better, I believe. I mean, I've worked in areas where I was watched every second of the day all over the prison. So it doesn't bother me to be on camera, obviously.
You're doing that, so you're hoping no one does find them, that there's more decomposition to the bodies, less evidence found. You don't know what these murderers are thinking.
Christine, when you look at the crime scene and they are continuing to process and the amount of evidence, here's the cold, hard fact. One of those two young girls most likely witnessed the
murder of the second.
Of her friend.
Yes. They're going to be able to find out a lot of information, and you hope that there's going to be discretion attached to all of this, that if that information is not going to lead them to a conviction of the murderer of these two girls, that is something that they won't share, and it won't be, they won't say that it's clearly determined, because that is a horrible thought. It really is. And, they should be afraid. You're right. There is a killer on the loose. These are two young girls doing something that young girls do, and somebody found them and killed them.
As the picture makes headlines and sparks more questions, the family is straddling two different emotions: loss and optimism that the picture will start filling in some blanks. Here's how Libby's grandfather, Mike Patty, sitting with his wife, Becky, remembers it.
We're just sitting here, both of us, in such disbelief that this has happened. So I don't know when they shared that information with us, if it was before or if they just released that information out, which was
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there for tonight. But I want to talk a little bit about this because, like I said, I don't know enough about this case to really, put a lot of input as far as my personal opinion without sounding misinformed. I don't want to go back and say, well, I didn't mean to say that, or I shouldn't have said that, because I don't know enough about the case yet. Badass American seems to know a lot about this. They might have an ace up their sleeve with trail camera footage. Yeah, I didn't know they had trail cams. I don't even know who you're talking about as far as Tony, Keegan, any of them. But it's interesting to find all this out, and that's why I'm kind of, going back and talking about this. They found clothing in the creek and a missing sock and a pair of panties. One of the girls was disrobed, I think. Tony is Keegan's father. Well, who's Keegan? Cult of Odin. They did talk about that. Like I said, I don't know enough about this to really, not like I know that other case, Keegan is doing 40 years for CSAM. Keegan is Tony's son. What's CSAM? I hope to be as well versed on this case as I appear to be on the Idaho 4. That little old case that hardly anybody knows about. Now, Odinism involved. I mean, that's what that one document was talking about. So I don't know. I don't know if it is. There are a couple of lawyers with YouTube channels that are on there watching this trial, providing updates. They did jury selection when today. So the trial's going to be coming up pretty soon. That's why I started to even talk about this, because I wanted to talk about a new case and let my subscribers at least be kind of mindful of what's going on. Keegan offered money for nudes, then sold them to others. That's what I asked. What's CSAM? Yes, I think they still needed 2 alternates. I mean, people think jury selection is a long process, but it's really not. I got to go to jury duty next Monday, see if I'm going to get selected. It's crazy, but they couldn't tie KG to RA. You can type their names in here because we don't know these people. Or at least their first name. Just type their first name, Texas, because we don't know their initials like we do in the Idaho 4. Okay, child, sex, and minors. Yeah, you can type regular words in here. You don't have to say unalive. You don't have to say graped. Any of that stuff. You can put the right words. I mean, if people can't handle it, they shouldn't be in here, honestly, because this is a real show. It's not a watered down version where we're scared to say words. Okay, well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that, Glitter. I didn't know that. Yeah, you asked that earlier, Texas. I didn't know. Um, I don't know the answer to that either. Keegan lied and said his father killed Abby and Libby after his father stopped sending him commissary money. You say they changed child P to CSAM. Okay. That's the first time I've heard of that. I'm used to hearing the other one. Child porn. News to me. But I learn something new every day. I'm glad to have been educated on the fact after all. I hope this case doesn't get ugly or go into drawn out conspiracies. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like I hope it just the information is put out there. The jury is able to see the evidence and get to a conviction or innocence. That's what I hope happens. Because I like that comment. Yes, I was lost on the initials this time. I was thinking, how could Kaligan Carvers be caught to Richard Allen? Hey, I was thinking the same thing, man. I was thinking the same thing. Keegan had, oh, damn. So how old is this Keegan? I learned something new every day, too. I learned today that in the UK, the judges still wear the old wigs and dress up like George Washington days. Yeah. I didn't either about that. That's crazy. Listen, parents, don't let your kids have smartphones. Parents, don't let your kids play violent video games like GTA. Too late for that over here. Also didn't know where the phrase bigwig came from. It's crazy. Of course. Keegan is like 30. Okay. So this guy sounds like an interesting character. So he would have been one of the younger guys that was in all those lineups that they always presented. Like I said, I didn't really dive into this, but I would see, other creators periodically putting things up there. So y'all talking about like these three right here? Let me see if I can find them. So this crime happened on Valentine's Day. So would this guy right here? Would this be? Who was the guy y'all said? The dad? Sorry about this. Something for the fellas. Would this be the dad right here? Would this guy down here be Keegan? I'm confused. I don't know. She's like grabbing it to make sure it's in there. I don't know. She's grabbing it. You think the other picture is the one that's Keegan, the one with the hat? God bless yoga pants. This one's Keegan. Okay. So this guy is Keegan. Then who is this guy supposed to be? And I know this is Richard right here. Hold on a second. Let's watch this video right quick. Okay, the guy in the hat is Allen. This is supposed to be Richard Allen right here. Then who is this? Hey Kim, how you doing? Hope you're having a good school year. Heather, y'all came in when we were having some yoga pen action. I didn't even notice that. I was like too busy scrolling. I guess they were showing how form fitting they were. Both of them are Richard Allen. Well, to me, this one right here that I'm showing does not look like Richard. But I could be wrong. I mean, in my opinion, something has always been off about that video and the audio. You certainly did notice. I did after I was starting to scroll up. I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was just like, "What?"
One of my favorite supplements is Cunol Turmeric. Turmeric helps with healthy joints and inflammation support, and Cunol has the #1 doctor recommended form of turmeric. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Okay, there's the video that they were talking about. So I've always, when I watched this on another person's page, they said he had a distinctive walk, like a limp. Would you say that was true, or would you say that that just him walking on the uneven? Okay, thank you, Glitter. Would you say that that was him walking on the uneven railroad ties? What do y'all think? Yeah, that's what I thought too. I thought that too. You know, let's watch that again. I mean, because that's a distinctive walk. I kind of remember this case now. It's coming back to me a little bit because I remember a lot of people were saying, see, he's carrying a gun right there. You see it? You see that gun outline? I mean, it just got crazy there for a while. And I think that's why I stopped paying attention to it. Because, because it's like people are pointing out stuff that they see. Because did y'all see what I was talking about right here? They said that this was the Glock, right? Or the 40 cal right here that he had it in his coat. You see it, right? You see it? You see the outline right here? There's the gun right there. You see it, right? I don't see it. I see that's probably his. I don't know what that could be, but I don't see that that's a gun. I see that possibly the coat being too tight and there's something obstructing this area. I don't see it being a gun. So this does look like the guy with the hat. You said Alan was 5'4"? Is only 5'4"? Alan is stocky. Alan is stocky and had a history of stalking women. He worked with sexually harassing them. The side profile doesn't look like Alan. Man, I'm gonna have to do a lot of catch up on this case. I never had about any past complaints. As far as what I know about the man, he worked at CVS. That's what I know. And and I only learned that because like I said, I used to watch a little bit here, a little bit there, but I don't know enough about the case. I think this is hilarious. I think I'd walk funny over that sketchy ass bridge too. Wait, isn't that the BK narrative? Which one? Stalking women and sexually harassing them? That's every killer's motive. Don't you know that? It's every killer's narrative. Allen was fired from Walmart for sexually harassing a young girl he worked with. I was all over the case until Moscow. You should have stayed on it. That way you could be as insightful as some other people in the chat. That way you could be up here and I could be like pinging off of you with your knowledge. You know what I mean? Like I said, I started researching it, but then I got bored on it. I was like, this isn't happening fast enough. There's not enough information for me. Let me go back to that other case that people hardly know about. That case that's not very it's not very interesting to people, and people just don't really care about it. So, let me go back to that case. Alan is from Mexico City in Peru, and a young pretty girl was murdered there, Jen Sofer. He moved right after her disappearance. Wow. Y'all know all the good sites. When do y'all have time for all this? I feel so left out of the loop. Maybe that's why I don't have the best information. Maybe that's why people don't come to my channel for good info on the other case that we don't talk about that much over here. Well, let me ask you a question though. Based on all the information that you have, whoever you are in the chat room, okay? If you've been following this case for a long time, then you know a lot more than I do about it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want you to put a 1 if you believe that he could possibly be found guilty, a 2 if you believe that he could possibly found innocent, and a 3 if you believe he's going to plea. So go ahead and put that in the chat for me. 1 guilty, 2 innocent, 3 he's going to cop a plea. What do you mean he's not allowing evidence in? No, you just can't drop that like that. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by he's not allowing evidence in? If his wife didn't stand by him, I'd say he'd plead out. I think he'll go to full trial. That woman has some guilt. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Judge Gore is not allowing evidence to exonerate. Oh, okay. Well, see, that's how much I know about it. Didn't the judge say they couldn't bring up deodonism? Okay, yeah, I kind of heard that earlier. Goal judge is named Goal. She has some goal. Junk into the trial. Okay. Well, maybe that'll happen in another trial. Not that you just don't know what trial I'm talking about, but maybe that'll happen in another trial we all follow. The judge also said should have exonerated herself because I don't think she's being fair. But I don't know if he's guilty or not. I know she's not any judge that I would want to have. I can't stand her. Go and Bev need to link up. Trial shouldn't be sensationalized. I agree with you. You can't. You shouldn't be able to sensationalize murder because you just never know when that's going to happen to you or your family. And then you're definitely going to be pissed off if somebody starts sensationalizing that murder. You'll be the first one to be like, "How dare y'all be talking about my family member like that? Y'all don't know nothing about them. Y'all be talking all this mess." Y'all be the first people to do it. I think she's dirty and corrupt, but that's just all of what I've seen from her. The defense tried to remove Judge Gall. The defense shot themselves in the foot. God, I'm so clueless. But I appreciate that y'all know all this. That is awesome. That is why we have to uphold our justice system because you never know when it might be you or your family. I didn't think it was one person after they didn't find those girls night one. I didn't think they were in Logan's house. The defense licked the crime photos of Abby and Libby. Yeah, didn't a YouTuber do the same thing? That's why they got their channel taken down. Somebody was saying that Frank dude from the other night that was on this panel he leaked those photos and got his YouTube channel taken down because of that. I remember seeing Dutch Frank, yeah. I remember seeing pictures going around very early on where they had like drawings of bodies and they had sticks on them and stuff and all that. I mean, there's a reason they leaked them. Oh, please, no. What's that reason? What's that reason? The one who called in the drunk church claiming to be the boyfriend of DM's best friend. I don't know about that either. The FBI and local police had a year and a half to scour around Logan property. This thing is a joke. I believe so too. I mean, not that I know enough about it to have any type of real dog in the fight, but I mean, a crime is committed. How many sacrifices have we had in this country? And nobody's ever really been tried for any of that. So that makes me wonder if all of a sudden in 2017, they're going to start trying sacrificial people, for their sacrifices. A segment of the detectives were investigating the cult theory and told no. Well, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it didn't happen because I don't know anything about this case hardly. The one who leaked the photos killed himself. That was the attorney, right? Elvis Fields. I also think killing people and framing other people is a thing. I also think people committing murder also try to stage. I really don't know. I believe that social media has given killers an out. That's what I believe. I mean, because before social media, you heard about people killing people. There wasn't no mob lining up to defend them. People were guilty. They were guilty. They were found guilty by the court. They were guilty. There was no insinuating circumstances. They let the court do their job, and YouTube had become the court of public opinion, and for whatever reason, we as YouTubers believe that we can make a difference by our opinion, and that's not how the law works. It's and maybe that's why I don't have a lot of viewers in the chat. They don't want to hear my bullshit. Who knows? But whatever it is, I mean, I believe in the justice system. You know, I don't believe that innocent people should be framed. I don't know how framing happens. I know how it happens in the movies, but I don't know how that would happen in real life. You know, frame others or stage crime scenes. Please reevaluate. It's not like they would kill, but show the line of framing or staging. Well, there's been serial killers that stage crime scenes, so it's not beyond reason that that couldn't happen. For framing somebody, I've never heard of somebody being framed for anything. Of course, of course. Because at the end, that's all it is opinion, right? At the end of the day, all these things that we're talking about is just our opinion. I agree with you, Heather. I agree with you 100%. They're not always 100%. And I've said that. I've said that since I started this channel. There's a lot of human error when it comes to investigation, and I believe that's why they try to hold off information from the public as long as they can, because for whatever reason, they want to get it correct, whatever they're investigating. You should look into the cases about framing. No, I don't have enough time for all that. I mean, if I had more time to give to this channel than I do, my content would be better. But this is as much time as I can have for the little bit of time that I do have. I'd rather live life. I don't care about really what the other stuff is. But if I ever get locked up for being innocent and they're trying to get me guilty, y'all please come to my defense. Speak loudly. See if y'all can free me. I would really appreciate that. No sarcasm, bro. You know what I mean? I mean, seriously, I don't have the time. I don't have the time. You know? I I hate that people who are in authority sometimes abuse their authority. I really hate that. I've been talked to like crap by cops and, assumed to be doing certain things and had guns pulled on me and all that, but I still believe in the criminal justice system. I mean, I still believe there are some good people left out there. When Jeff H was falsely accused, free Jeff H, free Jeff H. You know what I mean? No, I mean, I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not. I just believe that some of these some of these crimes, we just don't get enough of the stuff, and therefore what we do get, we question to death sometimes. And I don't know if the justice system works 100% of the time. I'm sure it doesn't. I'm sure it's probably running at 50% of that, because most of the cases are sent to plea. Most of the cases are plea deals because it costs too much to take people to trial. You know, that's awesome, badass. That's awesome. I have some Fed friends. I have some FBI friends and some state trooper friends and sheriff and cops and you name it. I know a lot of people in the law enforcement. That's why when people start to attack them, I don't really personalize it, but I'm just like, come on, man, give them some credit. Their job is hard enough, you know? I saw that. Thank you, Glitter. Well, hopefully things change around, you know? I mean, the blinders are definitely off from people. They're not believing the smoke and mirrors anymore, and that's a beautiful thing. But at the same time, you can't go from one direction completely to the other one. You got to have some balance there because then you become not believing anything or in anything, and everything is a question. And it doesn't matter what answer you get, it's always going to be answered with another question. So, you know, it's you got to be very mindful that you don't get too far away from the middle, you know, because if you go from one extreme to the other, then you're just going to be questioning everything. Me neither. I was watching some cameras earlier, you know, and there's some people that've been doing it too long. I believe that when you've been in the field longer than 15 years as a police officer, if you haven't gone into detective work or if you haven't advanced and you're still on the street as a sergeant or something like that, then you've been doing it too long. There's no way that you can be objective. This one lady, she pulled her gun on this guy that called the police on another guy that pulled the gun on him. And they ended up arresting both of the guys, you know, and the guy that called the police on the other guy was doing nothing. He got handcuffed, and the only reason he got arrested because he was supposedly obstructing, which was just talking back to the police, you know, and it was just like, man, I don't talk back. I'm just like, yes, sir, no, sir, you know, tell my reason why I was speeding, and then go about my business, you know. It just, I don't want to mess with them. I'm just like, when I was a kid, I grew up in a small town and I had the police hassling me 24/7, me and my buddies, because but were we innocent of not doing what we were doing? No, hell no. We were raising hell and we were intending to get the police involved, you know. We were running from the police. We were doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So I wasn't claiming innocence. But at the same time, I didn't claim victim either when we'd get put in the back of the cop's car, you know? And, you know, it's just like, you know what you're putting out, so you know what you're going to get. So you can never claim victim. That's just my opinion, you know? So take that with a dime and a cup of coffee and see how far that gets you, you know? See how far that gets you. But guys, I will continue this probably later on in the week. See if more people will come in here. And those of you that are in here, if you'd like to I'd like to welcome y'all back to attend another show. I'd really appreciate it because I enjoy y'all's commentary. I enjoy your energy. I enjoy your thought process. I enjoy it all, you know. And you are mindful of things that I have no clue about. And I enjoy learning from you guys. So Thank you so much for being in here. Thank you so much for being in here. You guys have a good night. Maestro, cue that music.